What's up guys, it's Michael here. In this video, we're going to cover a topic where it's been talked about recently. And thanks to the current crisis, gas prices have now risen to astronomical amounts. So you look at back then, a lot of people say it's thanks to inflation. Gas prices, if you remember about 2 decades ago, were literally under $1 in the 1990s era. It's literally like close to $1, under $1, and you notice during that time for the millennial generation, my generation, back then it was really cheap, and it started slowly increasing in prices. It suddenly went up to $1, then $1.50, $1.75, $2, and it went up to $3, and it became the new norm. The new norm
is hitting that subscribe button for the YouTube algorithm. So if you click on that subscribe button, I can update you what you can do to combat this inflation crisis.
So what to take away from increasing gas prices? What can you learn from this? First thing you have to understand is, how is gasoline being made? Gasoline is not just only used for cars. It's used for many other parts in the world, like basically plastics, infrastructure for roads, you name it, even power plants too. You can say, hey, go to green or renewable energy. Easier said than done. I mean, does anyone have like $35,000 to $50,000 at hand right now to even get a new electrical vehicle? And even assume that you could get one. Can you get one right away, like right now? You have to wait in line because of the shortage. But what's interesting is the current war with Ukraine is showing that the vulnerability of manufacturing in every single country, especially in the Western countries. It shows that, like, hey, when you outsource most of your things, most of the things you produce, like oil, gas, it becomes vulnerable when you do not have, or you've been cut off from supply from it. And what does it show? That shows that we are missing parts of the manufacturing process that should be brought back to home soil so it can combat prices. So this is just part of the story, but it breaks into a bigger picture that gasoline itself is very vulnerable, is because, you can point fingers at other people, but at the end, you point at the people sitting on top, basically whoever leads the country is the one mainly responsible for this incident, and also big corporations that work with them as partners. So first, you got to understand, how is gasoline made. Gasoline, when you drill out oil and crude oil, it cannot be turned directly, cannot be used in your car engines, cannot be directly used for roads. It has to be refined. So it's a multi-step part process. To break out to 3 parts, you have the place where you mine it and drill it. You have second, where you refine it. And number 3 is consumption, meaning we can put it to use, put in your cars and roads. So the first part, we have that down. So in the United States and in Europe, on the other hand, has a little bit more, difficult process because they try to buy gas from other countries, and most of Europe do not have that natural resource. And mainly they could change their import from like Middle East, and in this case, since they're not building a pipeline in Russia, you can import more from Norway. In the United States, what they have is Canada. I mean, we have our own oil reserves in the United States, but Canada itself is a massive oil reserve. So we buy majority of it from there. And here's the question, big question. If we have so much oil from a friendly neighboring country that we're buying from them, like a massive amount, why is gas prices still really high? So like I mentioned, there's 3 chains of command for manufacturing. First, you got the product. Number 2, how to make the product usable is refining it. What happens during that step? Going to step number 2, the refinement process. What happened over there? So as you can see, a lot of big corporations and the people leading the country decided, like, oh, let's make a deal with other countries and have them refine the process of natural oil and gas to refine it to that usable product. So they basically put it out in a shipping container, ship it all the way out to whatever deals they have with that specific country, then ship it all the way back to be used. And you asked me,
based on supply and demand, Michael, isn't that really inefficient?
Yes, you are correct. It's very inefficient. So inefficient to the point that increases up to a substantial amount of money and dollars. When we can build the refineries over here, it's just because people need incentives and subsidies, and you need the backing of whoever's leading the current state of affairs to build their own refineries over here and make the process over here, so that you basically lessen out the transportation route. That way, it makes gas a lot cheaper. But along that process, you gotta understand that refining gas is one thing. The government is there to make money, period. You see government as another type of business. Whether you like it or not, that's what it is. And you notice, like, since we import gas from other countries, so basically from oil, ship it over, refine it, becomes gasoline, whatever user products, bring it all the way back to port, then why is it even more expensive there? What's the other loophole right there that a lot of people don't know? Don't you forget that every state has some type of tax, either to get you in, like, for example, I mentioned in previous videos, property tax, like how Texas have no income tax, but it gets you on property tax. California has every single type of tax. So when the gasoline comes in refined, to have all these EPA regulations that raise the value and standards. So the gas itself coming in has to be specifically made to run for specific cars. Like, for example, Cali converters has to be designed specifically for California compared to every other state. And also how to make even more money from that. If you look it up online on Google, look how much is taxed on gas. So there's a federal and there's a state level. Some states don't have it. Some states do have. And some states, like California, has the extreme amount. About, I believe, about like 50 cents per gallon of tax. So actually, gas itself, there's plenty of it and it's really cheap. The reason why it's so expensive, because whoever's up there wants to milk the crap out of the consumer. That's when electric cars are coming out right now. There's a lot of lobbying against it because there's a lot of revenue loss. And it's basically, you can see it as an anti-consumer move based on them. And the more people transition to electric cars, there's a lot of people who care about cars, they like gasoline cars, but let's face it, as a daily driver from getting to point A to point B, as your first primary car, it's whatever. It's using anything that help you make money and save money. That's the whole point. And gasoline's going really expensive because it's exposing a big flaw in the system. And I really hope that one day that whoever created this flaw, I hope there's another company that comes in from down below. Basically, a little kid on the block comes up and shoves all these other companies out of the way. Tesla is one of them. I'm pretty sure there's going to be more other companies coming out there to teach these other big corporations that you cannot always purposely inflate gasoline prices, because $5 to $7 a gallon, and you blame it on whatever is going on to the Middle East, Russia, Ukraine. That doesn't justify why it's so expensive. You have basically no excuse. You have the biggest import you can get from Canada. And right there, they never mention whatever comes in between. And the refinement process, why does no one, all these other big media corporations never talk about it? Because if they talk about it, they realize there's a disconnect right there. Why gasoline is so expensive? It should not be. It can actually be comparable to electric. It will not be as cheap as electric cars, but it can still be a competitively advantage because gasoline is actually not that expensive. It should not be that expensive. It's just basically artificially inflated. But of course, you say, Michael, since this is what reality is, gasoline's got to be expensive. And you have, the dollars and greens to get an electric car, go for it. But keep that in mind, you will not get it right away. You have to wait. And you look at Tesla's websites, Kia, other manufacturers, you're looking about a year line and wait. And if you're fortunate enough to get one really soon and early and can avoid most of these problems, instead of paying $40? No, it's not even 40. You're looking at $80 to $100 to refill up, even $120, depending on the bigger vehicles. Well, that's unfortunate. You have to deal with it. There's nothing you can do. But if you own an electric car, then congratulations, you're part of the club. And what's interesting is when you own an electric car, do you realize that once you start owning more of these items and stop relying on the government, and sooner or later, they're going to try to tax electricity too. That's when solar panels are going to come into play. So gasoline's only a part of a revolution. Basically, electric cars, it's only a start of a revolution where people are starting to realize that some of these products are daily standards of living, daily goods such as electricity and water. Pretty soon, there are going to be people who understand that you can now own that product. Instead of relying on the government to generate water for you, you can generate your own, because there's actually manufacturers in Arizona doing it. Getting electricity from the grid, relying on the government, and always occurring blackouts. You can take ownership to that and get solar panels and get your own battery. And whoever owns electric cars right now, well, I gotta say, for the people who are suffering gas prices, sucks to be you. XDDDDDDD. XDDDDDDD.